Welcome to our lesson on metaethics. If applied ethics asks about specific moral questions, such as euthanasia, climate change, or justice in war, and normative ethics develops principles to guide our behavior, metaethics steps back to ask a deeper question. What does it mean for something to be right or wrong? Instead of focusing on particular issues or rules, metaethics asks about the meaning of morality itself, the status of moral claims, and the foundations of ethical thought. In this sense, it's a lot like asking where the rule book comes from, why it matters, and whether the rules it contains are even real. What is metaethics? Metaethics studies the meaning, status, and foundations of moral claims. It doesn't ask, should we recycle, but rather, what does it mean to say that we should recycle? At its heart are questions about truth, objectivity, and motivation. Are moral truths objective, existing outside of us, or are they merely cultural or personal opinions? Do moral standards have authority, and if so, why should they guide us? When we say something is wrong, are we describing a fact about the world, or are we just expressing our feelings? Moral realism. One major position is moral realism. Moral realists believe that moral facts exist independently of human opinion. For example, the claim genocide is wrong would be true even if every society in the world approved of genocide. On this view, moral facts are as real as scientific facts. But moral realism faces a serious challenge known as the grounding problem. If these moral facts exist, what grounds them? Do they come from God, from reason, from human nature, or from some entirely different source? And how can we know about them with any confidence? Moral anti-realism. Opposing realism is moral anti-realism, which denies the existence of objective moral truths. For the anti-realist, morality is more like taste or convention. Saying stealing is wrong may only mean I disapprove of stealing or my society discourages stealing. This makes sense of cultural diversity and personal variation, but it raises troubling questions. If morality is nothing more than opinion or convention, can we still say with confidence that practices like slavery or genocide are truly wrong, rather than just disfavored in certain cultures? Another major debate is between moral universalism and moral relativism. Moral universalists believe in one moral code for all people across all cultures and times. This belief underpins ideas like human rights and international justice. Philosophers might ground universalism in reason, shared human needs, or natural law. Moral relativism. Relativists, however, claim that morality is culture-bound or individual. Relativism promotes tolerance and respect for diversity, but it risks leaving us unable to criticize harmful practices in other societies. Critics even point out that relativism may be self-defeating. If all values are equal, then even the value of tolerance has no special claim. Moral motivation. Why do we act morally? Some say it's because of moral education. We're taught through religion, parenting, and social norms. Others say it's moral intuition, something built into human nature. Most philosophers agree it's probably both. An expanded look at moral motivation. We can deepen our look at moral motivation with internalism versus externalism. Internalists think if you believe something is right, you must be motivated to do it. Externalists argue belief isn't enough, you also need desire. This debate impacts how we see moral responsibility. Moral progress. Metaethics asks whether humanity has made moral progress. Optimists point to the abolition of slavery and the expansion of rights for marginalized groups as signs of progress. Skeptics, however, wonder whether this is genuine progress or simply cultural change. The very idea of moral progress assumes there is a standard by which we can judge improvement, and that itself is a metaethical question. Moral semantics. Metaethics also studies the meaning of moral statements, a field called moral semantics. Cognitivists argue that moral claims can be true or false, like scientific claims. Non-cognitivists, on the other hand, argue that moral claims do not describe facts at all. Under emotivism, when we say stealing is wrong, what we really mean is boo to stealing. Under prescriptivism, the claim means don't steal. On these views, moral language works more like expressing attitudes or giving commands than like stating facts. Moral epistemology. If moral truths do exist, how do we know them? This question falls under moral epistemology. Rationalists argue that reason reveals moral truths, while empiricists claim that we learn them through experience. Intuitionists add that some truths are self-evident, such as do not cause unnecessary harm. The is-ought problem. One of the most famous challenges in metaethics comes from the philosopher David Hume, who argued that you cannot move directly from what is the case to what ought to be the case. For example, just because people lie does not mean that lying is morally acceptable. This is known as the is-ought problem, and it forces us to think carefully about how we justify moral claims. Error theory, J.L. Mackie. Another influential position is J.L. Mackie's error theory, which claims that moral statements try to describe facts but are all false because no such facts exist. Mackie supported his view with two arguments. The argument from relativity points to persistent moral disagreement as evidence against objective truth. The argument from queerness suggests that if moral facts did exist, they would be very strange, unlike anything else in the universe, and therefore unlikely. Moral constructivism. Some philosophers, however, take a middle path through constructivism. Constructivists argue that moral truths are not discovered like scientific facts, but neither are they arbitrary. Instead, they are constructed through rational agreement. John Rawls' famous veil of ignorance thought experiment illustrates this. If you didn't know your place in society, what rules would you design to ensure fairness? Constructivism shows how moral truths might emerge from reasoned cooperation rather than metaphysical discovery. Applied metaethics. Although metaethics is highly abstract, it matters in practice. When programmers decide how self-driving cars should handle life and death scenarios, they're making metaethical assumptions about whether such decisions reflect universal truths or human conventions. When we debate cultural practices such as arranged marriage or animal rights, we're asking whether morality is universal or relative. Even thought experiments like the trolley problem highlight the metaethical tension between moral truth and moral preference. In conclusion, metaethics does not hand us a rule book for living. Instead, it invites us to reflect on morality itself, what it means to call something right or wrong, whether moral claims are true, and why they matter. By exploring metaethics, we sharpen our understanding of ethical debates, and we begin to see morality not just as a list of do's and don'ts, but as one of the deepest puzzles in philosophy. Alright, y'all, that's all for now. If you're interested in more videos on philosophy and ethics, check out the videos posted on our channel. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.